debate is it for militia? Is it for the everyday American? Was it for the state's organized militia, or was it for the everyday free man or woman to be able to bear and keep arms? So, can you just clarify a little bit on your understanding of the Second Amendment and why it was put together?
All right. Well, what it says and what it says and why it was put together could be two different definitions. Um, as far as what it says is, people being regulated of a well-regulated militia. That's any group, any ethnicity, any race coming together that feel threatened in any free state. They're authorized and have been given permission by the Constitution to go ahead and keep and bear their arms, and the rights shall not be, you know, um, infringed on. So what it says again is, you know, people being necessary. I mean, well-regulated militia, and also um, have giving people the right to keep and bear arms. It spills over to the everyday citizen, right? At the end of the day, its purpose was for. I saw a couple, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I saw a black militia group starting to form over in Atlanta. I don't know if you guys have seen that as of recent. Enough is enough as far as this guy is saying. I don't want to repeat the name or whatever. But at the end of the day, they feel well within their rights, and as per the Constitution, they're able to do so. Now, why it was put into place. It kind of sneaks factors into the everyday citizen, so that now we can carry. That's why it's an amendment to the Constitution. We can carry as an everyday person, whether you are a military policeman or a regular civilian, every day. So I think personally, um, it stood for grouping initially, but spilled over to the everyday citizen, and everyday citizens should have that right, just like any other group that's out there that is arming up to defend their rights or freedoms or whatever the case may be.
Excellent. What would you say to the people that say that we don't need that anymore? That we have police, and that we have you know the current justice system and etc. to keep us safe, because I mean that's the argument a lot of people are having. They're saying that we don't need. Back then there was muskets, and now it's
Yeah,
semi-auto and the high
yeah.
capacity magazines, etc., etc. You know, um, you could jump in on answering that, and then any of you other guys on the panel can go ahead and follow up on that too.
Before we start, we did have like a slight technical issue, so I want to make sure that I introduce everybody appropriately. I'm not going to go through the entire thing again, but welcome Gary Nelson, welcome James Halliday, welcome Kyle Thompson and Chris Luzon to the group tonight. So welcome aboard to Coffee for Your Soul, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead.
So basically, when seconds matters, minutes will be too late. By the time you call the police, whatever has happened has already happened. Bottom line.
Right.
So when it comes down to waiting on the police or the justice system really doesn't really assist us. I want to say it, people of color, as much as we would love it to. In fact, it somewhat works against us in most cases. So at the end of the day, yeah, we should have that right to keep and bear our own arms, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen before the police arrive. The average gunfight is between 2 to 3 seconds. By that time, it's all over. By that time, the police show up, whatever's happened has happened. So, yeah. So to those people, I'd say, you wait on the police. I won't.
So let me piggyback on that, right? So D, you were talking about how back then you had muskets, right? And people had different things, right? So everybody always had some form of protection for their home. It wasn't just the soldiers that were out there with the muskets. People at home always had guns. They had bats. They had machetes or whatever. So now, as time goes, evolution, things start to get better, right? So yeah, you have a right to protect yourself. Now, something you spoke about before was how, they're talking about high caliber magazines and all these different things. I'm not saying that you need all that, but you do have a right to protect your home, and that's how the Second Amendment has it, right? So the whole thing with the Second Amendment is the right to keep and bear arms is a right of people to possess weapons and arms for their own defense. So
Right.
that's what we're doing. Is we're defending our property, our family. You know what I'm saying? Our kids. Them 9 girls he's got over there. You know what I mean? I mean 4 girls he's got, the 9 kids. But those are the things that we're protecting, and that's
Right.
why I think the Second Amendment is important. You know what I mean? When it comes to the justice system, I think that's a whole totally different thing. But when it
Right.
comes to that, just that Second Amendment piece, then yeah, definitely we have the right to do that, and it's for the protection.
So I have a question on that, just to touch on that. So you guys kind of touched on some historical context when it comes to the Second Amendment. And I was reading a couple of articles, one from the Violence Policy Center and one from the Daily Beast article from August 18th that was talking about how the Second Amendment came about in Virginia for working to ratify that amendment into, or they weren't going to ratify the Constitution. And a lot of it had to do with Congress having control of militias in states like Virginia and some of the southern states being fearful that their slaves were going to run them up. So they wanted to make sure that they had weapons to make sure that system stayed in place. The second point I want to touch on with Mr. Holliday is, I know you talked about the system and you don't want to wait for the police. And traditionally, the system has not worked for us. So if you were to use your Second Amendment right and possibly, cause harm upon somebody else, what have you seen in terms of the system still working for us? Because if the system is lopsided, it's going to be lopsided potentially, whether we're on the right side or the wrong side. So I wanted to get your feedback on that.
Well, as I've seen in the past, different shootings from I'm in the state of Florida, so I've seen a couple different shooting incidents where there's some incidents that are almost simultaneous, meaning in nature, what happens, the detail of it. And the problem is if a Caucasian guy has an incident and uses his weapon, he's not necessarily going to get picked up that same night. If an African American gentleman uses his weapon on somebody, he's going to get picked up that night. He's not going to go home to his family. It's not going to be a 2 or 3 day wait. So yeah, you're right about that. That's why in my classes, I try to make sure when you have if you get into any type of shooting, make sure it is a justifiable shooting or a justifiable homicide, whatever the case may be. Make sure you understand the laws so you don't get caught up as much as possible, which you need to have a legal defense. Nobody who possesses a firearm shouldn't walk away without any type of legal defense. You can't depend on a public defender to help get you out of a jam. All right, so you should have some form of a legal defense team, some form of insurance that is going to assist you in that time if you ever need it. So as far as the justice system working against us in a case of a justifiable shooting, it happens. It has happened. There's cases I can talk about. A kid in Tallahassee shot someone from a club. He was running from the event, and he basically backed himself into a corner. He went to jail that night and is still in jail today. It was, in my opinion, a justifiable scenario. He was, defending his life. The young lady up in, I think it's Clearwater, Florida, where she fired a warning shot at her husband. You remember that, right? So there's another scenario where there's injustice in the so-called justifiable system. Imagine, what did she need to do? Wait for him to beat her or kill her before she fired a warning shot?
And he already got convicted of domestic violence against her. She ended up doing 8 years in jail. She would have been better off just killing him. Yeah,
killing him. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep, 100%. They actually changed the law because of that. There's warning shots. Warning shots are now authorized in the state of Florida because of her. So instead of letting her get out of jail, she had to do 8 years, and they had to change the law. Like, I don't know if anybody's a K licensed instructor in Florida, but that was one of the test questions that they changed, that warning shots are now authorized. That was all because of her.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So instead of letting her out of jail, they were like, well, we'll just change the law.
That's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
And then you got people like George Zimmerman, who obviously was the aggressor and initiated it, and he walks away scot-free. And here's a woman trying to defend her life and against an obvious threat.
Crazy.
And the law worked against her. So we definitely have to educate ourselves. If we decide to practice the Second Amendment and go and get ourselves a firearm, it's imperative that we know our laws, because the state laws vary. You know, some states are very lenient and some are very strict, and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you decide that you're going to cross state lines with a firearm and not know that you're going into a different law, different statutes, etc. And the thing is, they're not lenient. They're not lenient. A simple mistake you make, you know, having the wrong magazine clip or having the wrong putting the firearm in the wrong place can literally get you 3-4 years probation, all types of craziness. And it's, you know, it's sad that the law-abiding citizens who will end up paying for this, because the criminals are criminals, right? They're gonna go and do what they're gonna do regardless. They don't need to know, you know, how they're gonna do it or think about what they're doing. And they're the ones that the book should be thrown at, not the everyday citizen who's doing the right thing, you know, who makes a simple mistake. But go ahead.
So Kyle, I got a question for you. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. We are told to blame the person and not the gun, but then some people argue to blame Hollywood and video games instead. How does that make sense from your perspective?
It doesn't. It doesn't. For me, it's 100% holding people accountable. I feel like when we hold people accountable, the right things happen. It's easy to blame video games. It's easy to blame the culture. It's easy to blame those other things instead of holding people accountable for their actions. That's tough. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if my mentality is a little old school, but for me, I don't believe in blaming the video games, blaming rap music, blaming the culture, blaming what's going on. Everything but parenting and doing what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Is the problem. To me, I got 4 kids. I don't have 9, but I got 4. And for me, it's all about being held accountable as a father and making sure that I do what I have to do to make sure my kids don't go down the wrong path and have those wrong influences. And that's what I believe. 100%.
Chris, I know you just got back on. Would you like to chime in on that?
Sure. So you had some technical difficulties, but I think not only Kyle is correct, parenting is key, but the reality is you can be the best parent in the world and your children can still go down the wrong path. So the music, the culture does play a role in that, because you have to look at it as when these kids are looking up to Migos, Boosie, you know what I mean? Moneybags, Yo, all these artists, and this is all that they talk about.
Right.
It's a form of brainwashing, and this is what they cherish. And to them, they see these guys as successful. They're making money. They have the cars. They have the clothes. They have the women. And all they do is rap about trapping and guns. So that's what they feel like they need to do as well. So I think it's definitely parenting is the most important factor. But we do got to hold the culture accountable just a little bit. Because
100%.
You know what you say, you know, not to jump in, but what about American culture? Because, you know, some people will be quick to jump on hip hop, and to your point, you know, the glamorization of inner city criminal life. But, you know, when Arnold Schwarzenegger's taking down a whole village of enemies with his one machine gun, when Bruce Willis is blowing up a building, then it's not the culture. Then it's just good old entertainment. We love it. It's American culture. We love guns. We love, you know, killing. But when it comes through a black perspective, you know, sometimes it's vilified a little more. And listen, I'm not even the one. I can't stand half of these cats that are rhyming about this garbage right now. And I think I really can't. You know, I mean, I like hip hop. I appreciate it changes and people listen to new stuff now. I listen to old school hip hop. I guess I'm an old man, but truth be told, even old school hip hop, you did have a glamorization. You know, you don't have to get into NWA, all of these things we grew up with. So I take your point. What I'd like to, you know, bounce to another question from this though, because we're talking about knowing, you know, how to be accountable with firearms, and you know, I know that Gary brought up that from this country's beginning, you know, having a firearm, being able to protect yourself, you know, and your family is kind of just part of your American identity. And for our guests who are actual servicemen or former servicemen, you you know, I have a lot of family in the military. I never was in the military, but one thing I always hear is when you're on base, when you're, you know, on duty, you know, your firearms, what's on you, what you have, like it is so regulated. You're not just walking around like, you know, Wild West, you know, with a gun on your hip. You know, they have to go to the I forget where it is where they have all the weapons stored, the armory. Thank you.
Yeah.
Everything has to be checked out, itemized to the round. You know, when I talk to my cousins about it and they kind of educate me on stuff. So, you know, you have a lot of the American population who wants some form of gun control. You know, it doesn't have to be the, you know, eye scan and, you know, fingerprint, you know, try to track you down. I'm not for that. But, you know, some type of form of, you know, I want to avoid the word regulation, but some way to make sure that just not anybody and everybody who can get a firearm does have a firearm. Because I think everybody here knows or thinks or understands that, you know, not everybody needs to have a gun. If you've demonstrated enough bad behavior to where you can't be safe with a gun, maybe you don't have one. What do you guys think is that middle ground or that place where, you know, the Second Amendment can still live and breathe as it needs to, but there is some form of accountability for firearm ownership and you know, God willing, not but use.
Hold on, Gary. You go take that. Gary, you take that question.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Maximus, is completely true, right? On base, when we're on base, I was in the Marine Corps. Everybody know, and I always throw banter at the other armed forces. The Marine Corps, we're those folks. We that's us. You know what I'm saying? We work on being a rifleman. That's our first job, and then whatever our job is after that. So everything that you learn, you know, you're taught everything, right? So if you have your gun in your holster, you're taught to walk around it a certain way. You're taught to act a certain way when you have your gun versus when you don't. So in terms of regulate, quote unquote, regulating it, we need to do a better. We meaning the U.S. We meaning all the organizations that are out here selling the guns. They need to do a better job at background checks, right? There was a former I don't remember what part of the military he was in. The gentleman that he was dishonorably discharged, went and purchased a firearm right there on the spot, and it went and shot and killed a couple of folks. That's the kind of stuff that we need to avoid. We need to be able to be more diligent in our background checks. Just the same way that you're going to a home, you know, you're going to purchase a home, they're running your credit, they're doing this, they're doing that, trying to make sure that you are qualified. It's the same way they need to do that in order for you to get your firearm. Some places allow, you know, in Florida, before I had my concealed, I'm not in Florida anymore, but when I had my concealed, you know, before I had my concealed, if you went up to go purchase a gun, they would hold it for like 3 days so that they can run a background check. I think they need to extend that, you know, see what's going back, go back. Don't go back 1 year or 2 years. You need to go back 5 and 7 years to actually see what this person's background is before you actually sell them that gun or allow them to purchase that.
Well, hold on before we got a question from Natalie Jeffois, which is kind of to that point. So if you guys can see the question, what is your viewpoint on mental health screenings before firearm purchase and carry? What is your thoughts? We'll start off with you, Chris.
I'm kind of, so when it comes to mental health screening, so you're saying before you go purchase your firearm, are you mandating that this person goes to see, let's say, a psychologist before purchasing the firearm? To me, I'm not really with that. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think that we need to go that far, at least not yet. In reference to what Gary, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Gary. In reference to what Gary was saying, you know, he says that he believes that we need to do better background checks. I think in some situations we do, but that situation where that guy committed the mass shooting, that was one of the very few situations where it was someone who shouldn't have had a firearm but was able to legally purchase the firearm. So it was a loophole on the military side. The military did not pass that information on to the proper agencies stateside to make sure that wouldn't have happened. So yes, that would need to be an improvement. I personally believe the systems that we have in check now are good enough. they, just like any other system, we can make some minor improvements, but the people who are really talking about these drastic improvements really don't have a basic understanding of firearms knowledge, safety, or just even the process of how to obtain a firearm legally. So they're making these demands without actually knowing the actual process, what we legal responsible gun owners have to go through.
Yeah, well, just to touch on that, I think she meant like, okay, so you have people who are schizophrenic, bipolar, depressed, etc. In terms of that end of the spectrum, I think that is something that you want to pay attention to before somebody purchases a gun.
Absolutely.
So when she was asking that question, I think that's more along the lines of the vein she said I'm referring to, making sure a person's mentally sound. Because, even if you're just bipolar, there are extremes. So you could be on one side and then you could be extremely on the other. And so being aware, I think being aware of it, I don't know what the answer is to that, but I think being aware of that to some extent is important when it comes to somebody owning a firearm. No? Yes?
Well, typically, if you have a mental issue, such as, let's say you're bipolar and you're on the extreme end, there's going to be records of issues that you may have once law enforcement makes contact with.
Possibly.
But if it's not on the law enforcement side, if it's where you've been mandated by the courts to be be institutionalized, or you're not mentally, the courts have found you you're not mentally able to be responsible for yourself, or you're a danger to society, then yes, you won't be able to have a firearm. I haven't seen it yet where someone was on record. They were very known to have. They were very violent. They've had issues, and they were able to get a firearm and commit, let's say a mass shooting.
Yeah, from my experience working in a gun store, you're not able to, if you have any type of mental health institutionalized issues, any type of paperwork backing up your mental health issues, you'll be denied on a 4473 really, really fast. Chris is 100% right. The way everything works in from that regard, the 4473 is actually a really, really good background check system, in my opinion. That 3-day wait that Gary was talking about, they actually go back and do some pretty in-depth research into your criminal background, your mental health background. I've actually denied somebody for a domestic violence charge in 2004, and this was in 2018. So I kind of got a little bit of both sides with the firearms training, and then actually being the lead instructor at a gun store for a long time. So having to be the jack of all trades, I've seen it all, and I agree with Chris. I feel like our system is actually really, really good. Yes, that military instance is I was Navy for 7 years. That military instance, I've seen that before too, where somebody has done something in Germany, and it doesn't just, the paperwork doesn't follow all the way back across to the States. But I feel like that instance is rare, few and far between. There's some things that are going to slip through the cracks, like every system that we have in America. But overall, I believe our 4473 system is amazing. So that's just my opinion.
So I have a question to piggyback.
Hold on, Max. Okay. So because Kyle said it this one way because he was talking international. So here's the question from one of our followers: it's not the same in all countries, as you mentioned, obviously, but what makes the U.S. so trigger happy?
Our Second Amendment rights, our constitutional freedoms.
I think before you go into like that surface, I think, and I said this the last time I was on the call, I think this really begs to deal with, and Dimitri brought it up. It's like, what is the culture of the United States, right? And how does that culture breed itself into things like the Second Amendment? And how does slavery and those different things impact the way that people feel? And how do things matriculate all the way down from 200 years ago to now? And if you have a history of violence, unless you do something to quell said violence, then the culture will continue to be violent, right? So if you're just adding a component to the violence, well, it's a piece to utilize of said violence. But you know what I mean? That was just a piece. It was a tool to hash out and push out the violence I already had within me. And I don't think that's ever been truly reconciled in the United States. And I think because of the psychology, that has also added to the fact that we are also a very fearful group specifically when it comes to, oh, I need this thing because just in case someone's going to take something from me, which is a scarcity model, by the way, someone's going to take something from me, I got to defend myself. As opposed to if we lived in an abundance model, we wouldn't think that way. So I'm just pointing out historically how that breeds itself in. That's all.
So if you think about that, right? So I'm 45 years old. Me growing up in Brooklyn, back when I'm like 15 years old, right? It was nothing for us to get into a fight, and it was a fist fight. You get into a fight, and it was over. The next day, it's over. It's like, all right, we're good to go, right? So now you come fast forward a couple of years, a couple of years down the line, all of a sudden we get into a fight. You beat me up. I can't deal with that. I gotta go find a gun, which is so easy to do. Pop the trunk, something, and then come and just let go. But we've always been known. Everyone else has looked at the U.S. as the wild, wild west, because from back when cowboys were there to how, I'm saying, you sitting out there, bang, bang, all that good stuff, to now. And we're known. And that's how we walk around. We say, yo, we have the biggest stick because we have the best military in the world. And so it's like you were saying, that's how it kind of falls all the way down to saying, okay, we got the best military in the world. So guess what? I need to have the best arsenal in the world. I need to have the best guns.
Go ahead, Max.
Before Max, the one thing that I'll say is unfair to the United States, which I have to say is a lot of times they compare the United States to, let's say, Switzerland or to Great Britain. So you're comparing 50 states to a very small region, which can play in a bad way in terms of arguments, but it's done a lot. And so I do think that America is violent. Please be clear. I think we're overly violent, but I also think that those comparisons also can skew the conversation a little bit, because we're like, man, America, we ain't nothing like New Zealand. You're like, New Zealand's like 20 million people. We got 350 million, just for the sake of argument. So something to be
right. Well, just agree. Go ahead, Max. Just to add to what you said, what you gentlemen are saying, we all know the history of this country is about violence. That's what America. That's what we are. When we want something, if we can't get it, then we go the violent route. We take it. Either you give it to me or I take it. So the violence, that's just who we are as a country. So it does trickle down into us. But I think another side of it is too that a lot of people, when you say trigger happy, when I hear that, I'm just like, people who are just itching to shoot, just to shoot people. Like myself and Kyle, when we are out there teaching these new responsible legal gun owners, we're teaching them that at the end of the day, the only time the gun should come out is when your life's on the line.
Last resort.
We don't. It's a last resort. We're not going out starting issues.
100%. But
we have this tool within our toolbox to protect ourselves or our loved ones. The reality is, violence is up. And no matter where you're at in this country, there's sheep and there's wolves. You have to decide on
which way you're gonna be.
100%.
So let me get my question in real quick before I forget, guys.
Go ahead,
so and just to get back to being responsible, and okay, we could have firearms, you could purchase firearms, you don't know if I'm crazy or not. I have no history on the books of having mental issues. Okay, so now I think of Philando Castile, right? That's the brother out in Wisconsin or Wichita, one of those far off places. Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Who, had his family in his car, for God's sakes, let the officer know that he had a concealed permit, was a gun owner, and, Mr. Nervous McNally didn't know what to do and shot this guy in front of his kid, almost shot the girl, this little girl consoling her mother. It still makes me sick. But that being said, and we don't have any, we've had law enforcement on this show before. Tonight we don't, but you as gun instructors and, those who are training people on how to shoot and carry firearms, what's your advice to, because I have my concealed license. I live in Georgia. I'm happy to have my firearm on me. I don't always travel with it, but what is the proper way for certain people, let me leave it right there, to let law enforcement or the authorities know, hey, I've got a gun, I'm okay. Please don't shoot me in front of my child because I'm going to give you my wallet. What, because I have a feeling when those interactions happen to, non-melanated citizenry, to say the least,
Correct.
they aren't as fearful that they're going to be shot dead by an officer. Now, that's not to say that some of them also have issues. Some of our white brothers and sisters have issues with law enforcement who, unfortunately, some of them are not being trained to police. They're trained to look at, their fellow citizens who they're policing as the enemy, like they're in a war zone, far be it from me to know what that means. But anyway, without digressing more, what is the proper way? Kyle, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, so I'm active law enforcement right now, and a firearms instructor.
Okay.
So I got both ends of the spectrum a little bit.
Great.
Actually, Philando Castile, his unfortunate situation is actually one that I refer to in my concealed carry class, in just kind of breaking down how to interact with law enforcement in that situation. So as Chris can attest to, we don't have to notify upon being stopped by law enforcement that we have a firearm in the car. So one of the things I do tell in my class is I say, hey, look, we're not a right to notify state. So if you get pulled over for doing 35 and a 25, let that be what the conversation's about until the situation changes. If you fit the description, can you step out the vehicle? Do you mind if I search your vehicle? When the situation changes from rolling through a stop sign, tail light out, or 35 and a 25, that's when it's a good time to let them know. If you watch the Philando Castile tape, I think his second sentence was, I just want to let you know I'm a concealed weapons holder and have a firearm in the car. And just like you alluded to, Max, you could hear the pitch change in the officer's voice.
Yeah.
You could tell he was a new officer. You could tell that his interaction with people of color wasn't every single day. I actually did a lot of research into this case because it really bothered me, man. That video was hard to watch because that could have been me, you, or anybody on this panel. And so for me personally, the Minnesota thing was tough because that was a really, really tough situation. To see somebody gunned down in front of their daughter and their wife or girlfriend or whatever the situation may have been, man, that was real tough for me to watch, man. And how to answer your question, how I tell my students to interact is when it's appropriate, notify them that you are a concealed weapons holder. At that point, don't reach for anything. Leave your hands on the steering wheel and be directed in everything you do, and ask for permission. You want my driver's license? My driver's license is in my rear right pocket. Do you mind if I reach and grab it? And everything you do, it'll be like Simon says at that point.
Go ahead, James.
Can I add to that?
Let me piggyback off of that really quick. I'm in Miami, to be precise, and it is extremely hot down here. You guys have seen it all over. At the end of the day, what I would do, what I tell my students, I'm 6'4", 370 pounds, right? I'm already a natural threat physically, right? Mm-hmm. Some may look at my skin and say I'm a natural threat visually, but at the end of the day, Florida is also one of those states that you don't have to tell the officers that you have a permit or that you have a gun, except that they ask you, then you have to be forthcoming with the information. So here's what I'm saying. What I do, because I know the attention or the aggression, the levels nowadays aren't as they were 15, 20 years ago, right? When I was growing up as a child, my mother said, hey, when you get stopped, those are the conversations we had. Put your hands out the window and leave them there until the stop is over. Nowadays, I continue that, but I'm very forthcoming. Obviously, I'll give them my permit as well as my license. Here's why I do that. What I'm looking to do is because, again, I'm a natural visual threat and I'm a natural physical threat, right? So what I'm looking to do is I want to bring their aggression down immediately. I want to bring some of the hostility down. I want to bring that down before we really start engaging. I want my stop to be from 5 to 15 minutes rather than from 5 to 2 hours and multiple cars around it, right? At one point, I got stopped once before, and I don't know what made me do it, but the officer wanted me to give them my IDs. I said, sir, listen, if you don't mind, go ahead and place me in handcuffs, remove me from my car for your safety and mine. And this was long before Philando Castile. This was long before the Trayvon Martin. This was long before the cops' aggressions were visually being recorded nowadays, right? This was probably well over 10 years ago. But at the end of the day, I felt like my life was going to be in jeopardy had I not asked him to place me in cuffs. And remove me. I didn't mind. I don't see me in cuffs. You know, but it's for my safety. My objective is to make it home. That's the objective, to make it home.
100%.
Right. At all times. Can I just add a piggyback onto that? James and Kyle added some great information. So, you know, we're instructors, so we instruct our students to do the same thing. What I tell them that pretty much same thing Kyle and James say. But what I add to that too is because at any given time, we saw Philando Castile. He followed, he complied, and he was still killed. So when you're dealing with when you're in a traffic stop and you feel like your life's on the line and you feel like the officer might be too trigger happy or too nervous, take control of that stop. Take control of that traffic stop respectfully. I tell them this: if he's that nervous, if I get pulled over and I'm dealing with an officer such as one that killed Philando Castile, I'm not moving at all. I'm not going to reach for anything because
true story.
When you reach, even I'm law enforcement certified. Kyle knows too. All I have to say is I know that there was a gun in the car. I reasonably believe you were reaching for that firearm, even though we know in that video Philando was not reaching for the firearm. That officer failed in maintaining control of that traffic stop. When you stop someone, your responsibility is to control that stop. So when you tell me you have a firearm, and then I tell you to go ahead and reach for your driver's license, I just instructed you to reach. That's what Philando did, and he unfortunately was killed. So I tell them this: if you feel unsafe, don't reach for anything at all. Keep your hands on the steering wheel, be respectful, and tell them what you're doing. Officer, I'm nervous for your safety and my safety. I will not be reaching for anything. You have two options. You can do what James said, because that's what I tell them to do as well. Ask him to remove you from the vehicle, or you can say, sir, I'm going to leave my hands here. Respectfully, I will give you my name, date of birth, my social, and you can verify me that way. That way, I'm not reaching for anything, and you can't say, well, I thought he was reaching for a gun.
Exactly.
Now you take that away. So you give him two options, and you be very respectful. And then he will decide on which way he wants to go. And you tell him it's for your safety and my safety, to make sure that at the end of this traffic stop, we're good to go. Either you give me a warning or a citation, but there's no use of force. I don't get shot. You don't have to use your gun, and things don't go downhill.
100%.
So
go ahead, G.
On that, right? What's funny is, so I'm looking at it from, I'm not certified by all means, right? There was a time I'm married to my wife. I was coming from a Masonic party and I got pulled over on 595 when I lived down in South Florida, and I had a white cop with me, and I was talking to her while I was driving home, and I was like, hey, I'm getting pulled over, but I had on a Dickie suit, so I didn't have anywhere to have my gun on me, right? So it was in the glove box. And this gentleman pulled me over, young white guy, and he's like, hey, I'm pulling you over because you were speeding. I said, all right, cool, I got it. He's like, where are you coming from? So he's asking me the regular questions. And so what he asked me then was, hey, what I need you to do, I need you to get me, let me see a copy of your registration. I had my wife on, and I told her to mute her phone just in case. This is before all this stuff started. This is like back in 2007, somewhere around there, 2008. And so she had it on, she had her phone on mute. She's listening to everything. And so he's telling me to grab, and I'm like, look, I don't want to reach for my registration right now. He's like, why? I said, because I have my concealed, and I was like, and my gun is in the glove box. So what he ended up doing, it's like you were saying, I think it's Chris, right? Chris?
Yes, sir.
He said to take control of it. So I was like, hey, look, you can go in there and get it if you want to. Correct. But I'm not going to go get it. And he walked around the side, you know what I'm saying? It's just like he was saying, which is great to take control. He walked around the side. I put my passenger side window down, and he opened up the glove box, and he saw the gun, and he found the registration. And of course, he checked the gun as well to make sure everything was, legit. But I'd given him my license, my concealed, and everything. And gratefully, I was able to, to make it home. So you're definitely right. You have to think. You can't be agitated because they don't want to see you shaking, right? Because they're already thinking about you. You have to be in control of the whole situation.
Yeah. Who would like to touch that question that just popped up on the screen?
Absolutely not. In the state of Florida, you have the right to have your car, and you have the right to have your gun in your car. Don't put it in your trunk, because if something happens, you can't get to your trunk. You can't tell the criminal to wait for you.
Too late.
Let me get to my trunk and grab my gun. It's too late. Seconds matter.
Hold on, I'll be right with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
there's definitely in Florida, I would say to stay away from that, because one of the forcible felonies is carjacking. To protect yourself from, being carjacked, you definitely want to. And one, to piggyback off what Gary said earlier about having your gun in your glove box. That's why for me, I don't keep my gun in the glove box when I'm driving. I have it in the center console.
Me neither.
For that reason exactly, because
Mm-hmm.
when I do get pulled over, I do have to get my license, my registration. I like to be able to get in there without, a Glock 43X dropping out my glove box and falling out.
Right.
So what I do for me is I carry it in the center console. And if I have to leave the car or anything and I'm going into like a federal building and stuff like that, that's when I transfer it to the glove box and then come back.
And that's what it was, Kyle.
Yep.
That's exactly why.
Quick question on that. What is the legality of like not having it so concealed in your vehicle? Because I've been to gun shows. They have those like high-powered magnet strips. You could stick them on the side of your bed. You could put them right there, so that literally the gun is standing there, ready for you to slide and grab it in a God forbid emergency situation. So you have that much easy access. Now, of course, it is at that point it's not in an enclosed chamber. I know some states have like a 3-point rule where it can't be in the chamber. You can't have a round ready. The magazine can't actually be in the firearm. There has to be at least 3 steps before that gun is hot. Is that something that you would say, hey, avoid that in your locale? It may look cool at the gun show, but that might get you shot.
Max,
what's your mindset on quick access to firearms?
Let's be very clear for everyone listening. Please contact and look at your own state laws. It's not universal. It is 100%. Very different. And anything that these gentlemen say will be only useful in the state that they're in. So do not take this advice as, let's put it in the glove box, put it here, put it there. Please. If you're going to have, guys, and we got to be very, very clear also. Owning a firearm is a huge responsibility. Right? It is a huge responsibility. Not only can it be stolen and get in the wrong hands, not only can it be misfired, not only can kids get to it, not only can someone else steal. I mean, there's so many. This is a powerful right that we have, and 100%. For the most part, most of the law-abiding citizens follow and respect those rights. And to be honest, to get a concealed weapons permit, I've taken the class twice because I let mine expire and I had to do it again. And both times I've taken it, the firearm instructors, I mean, they're very clear on safety. They're very clear on the laws. They're very clear on don't put them, have your finger on the trigger. I mean, these things are very important. So, I just wanted to make sure that we talk about the differences in the laws and not to take any advice here as, so and so said so. Right? We're not giving any legal advice on how to carry your firearm.
Especially because a lot of us are in the South. So I see a lot of Florida and Georgia. We got 3 instructors right here from Florida and Georgia. If you live up north and you're listening to this podcast, please take it.
I'm in Maryland. Hey, I'm gonna tell you now. I'm in Maryland. So, leaving Florida, because Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, reciprocity, everything was good. When I moved to Maryland,
kiss that goodbye.
There's no concealed carry. I had to keep. It's in the house. That's it. Unless I'm going to the range, and if I'm going to the range, then you got to know how to take it to the range. So it's in the trunk. It's in the case. It's not loaded. Magazine is not inside. You know what I'm saying? Everything is to the side. So it's like Dimitri said, you have to know. So
it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. Absolutely. And not every not every state is friendly to the Second Amendment, and they will make an example of you if you make a simple mistake. So pay attention to those laws when you decide to go do that. I wanted also to point out something, right? We're talking about the culture and how United States has a violent culture, etc., with the entertainment, the movies, the music, etc., etc. But let's be honest, guys. We're talking about the Second Amendment. We're talking about concealed permit and the right for citizens to carry their weapons. Citizens that are legally carrying weapons, that are legally purchased, rarely commit any crimes with that weapon. It's statistically a fact. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's below 1%. It's super low. So when they talk, right. So when we start talking about, the violence and all the culture, we're talking about illegal firearms. And
100%.
Unfortunately, the same way illegal drugs get in the game is the same way illegal firearms get in the game, right?
Absolutely.
You can look it up right now. You could Google it, and you will see that from time to time, Border Patrol, the customs, they seize firearms all the time coming in that are illegal. Okay, so these are the firearms that make it to the street. So I the argument to restrict legal law-abiding citizens from owning a legal firearm, it's crazy to me, because statistically we do not do the crime. We'd never use it. I mean, and it's funny too, because when a citizen does use the weapon to save lives, everybody's quiet. It's crickets. Nobody talks about it. They never. Huh?
No, you never hear about it. You're so
you never
true.
hear about it. It's crickets. I mean, and it happens. It happens quite often where people save lives by carrying carrying a firearm. So we gotta be this right has to be protected by all costs, in my opinion. And I want to say this. Firearms have, and I think I saw it on your page, James Holiday, the increase in background checks, firearm purchases this year has grown exponentially because of what's going on, right? So look at one other thing. I wanted to come in, but saying that about the crime, the cities that have the highest gun restrictions have the highest gun violence.
Correct.
Come on, let's talk about that, right? So, James, you want to jump on? James, you want to?
There you go. I just dropped those stats for you, so I got it right there.
Oh, that's crazy. Coincidence.
See that?
Go ahead, James. Jump in on the argument that banning guns or restricting guns will not buy.
John, you have it up there now.
Stop crimes.
Yeah, well, putting up right now.
Yeah, I see it's coming up.
I gotta agree with you, Dimitri. At the end of the day, law-abiding citizens aren't gonna do anything with the weapon, except go to the range for the most part. They're not looking to do anything but protect themselves, protect their families. And with the cities that are producing so much violence, where's it all stemming from? There's a root cause for everything. At the end of the day, for those that are saying, take guns off the street, for what? Because if the law-abiding citizen takes his or her gun off the street, then we're just we're fair game to the criminals. The criminals aren't going to turn theirs in. So why do I have to release mine? Why do I have to have a capacity cap like California, no more than 10 rounds inside of a magazine? Why do I have to have a capacity cap? Why do I have to have? I'm not saying I want to run around with it. I'm not sure about Maryland.
Does Maryland have that too? Cap? The 10 round magazines in Maryland too, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yeah, they may have a capacity cap.
But I have something to say about that one. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. No. I was just saying, to the people that are running around saying that, why are so many guns on the street, or why bad guns and all this stuff. Guns haven't. One gun has never jumped off a table and shot anyone. First and foremost, a gun is just as lethal as a feather sitting on a table. That's it. Until you put one in the hands of someone, that's when they go off. Whether they were trained or untrained people, that's when they go off. Bottom line.
Good stuff.
Hence the importance of training. Well said.
So there's some stats on the screen. So yes, sir.
No, go ahead. I was just saying I think the stats, we got it. So
yeah, we're good.
And we'll put those stats up after for people who wanted to view them, because we know that the little bit small on the visual there, they're kind of hard to read. But anyone who's interested in those stats, they'll be up on the Facebook page.
Stats, we got it. So
I think there was a question.
No, go ahead, Gary.
Now I was going to say, what's funny is 10 rounds in a magazine to me is a lot. And I know Kyle, Chris, and James, and I'm sure other brothers, whoever are really good shots, understand. It only takes really that first and second one for me to know where you at. I'm good after that. If I need more than 10
Yeah.
Something's wrong. Well, you know what? I disagree.
Can I chime in on that? Can I chime
Yeah,
in
go
on
ahead,
that?
Chris. Go ahead.
I've been involved. So I don't know about the other guys, but I unfortunately have been involved in a shooting and then a gunfight. There's a difference between the two. So I will say this. With my experience, my last one, I was involved where I was dealing with 3 shooters. So that tells you how complex, stuff hit the fan. I'm a firm believer in having as many rounds as possible. So because you never know the environment, the factors surrounding your case. If for me, I can't go with that mindset of having just 10. I like to have more because you never know. +1 rule. If I'm dealing with a subject that has a rifle, I'm pretty much, I need to have as many rounds as possible. You understand?
Yep. Right.
Now imagine when I'm dealing with 2 people shooting at me at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
the 10 is though. I mean, it's just 10 in that magazine. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, I can have multiple magazines, but just 10 in the mag. But I get what you're saying, Chris. Understood.
My whole thing about the 10-round magazine is Maryland's a small state, man. And if it's a 45-minute drive to Virginia to go get me a Glock 17 magazine with 17 rounds, I'm just saying, depending on where you live. I mean, I used to be in Maryland all the time. I was in Delaware and Virginia real quick. So my whole thing is, if the bad guys can go get it,
why can't we?
Why can't we have it? That's my thing.
And let's address
I may only need one round, but you know what I mean. If the bad guys can have 17, I need 17 too.
Correct. Because at the end of the day, the way this gun control thing is going on, the issue is this. So, we have to get political when we talk about gun control. You can't talk about gun control and leave out politics. So 100%. These hardcore Democrats. So you think banning, and I hate when they say this, assault rifles. You want to ban assault rifles. So we don't have the ability to protect ourselves with the rifles. We don't have the ability to protect ourselves in their eyes with high capacity mags. But yet, when bro pulls up with a Glock and a 50-round, 100-round drum, and he's trying to hit a lick on me and my family inside the crib, I'm stuck. I got 10 rounds and he has 100. And you think your gun policy, your gun control is going to keep me safe? No, it actually endangers me.
Right. You know what? I wanted to put this into perspective too, right? What you said is actually there's a difference between a shooting and what you said. What was the other term?
There's a gunfight,
right?
Gunfight,
right?
Yeah, 100%.
And there's also there's a difference between someone going to commit an individual going to rob you at the ATM, at your car, leaving wherever you're going, right? Versus civil unrest and complete anarchy, right? So when you see these guys, when there's riots and people burning down this business and burning down that business and it's going crazy, listen, your little 10-round clip is not going to scare the mob. You know what I'm saying? You need something that's going to let them know, look, I can handle
223.
Yes. And there's a weapon for different scenarios. You know what I'm saying? There's and if like I'm telling you, I've known people personally that last year used to debate me about firearms and we don't need them or all you need is a handgun. And now I've literally talked 2 people into going and getting firearms. I didn't talk. Actually, let me take that back. I didn't talk them into it. They hit me up, was like, "Yo, you know what? I think it's that time." I'm like, "Well, you were the one talking about last year,
where we're sitting at though. Where we're sitting at though is a crazy time, right?
Correct.
I mean, you have,
100%.
and let's think about it. For people that have guns, that own, we're fine. But you're looking at it at a time where, for months, we're not able to go outside. We're not able to go to work. We're not able to do this. So you have a lot of people losing their jobs. So you have a lot that don't have already, and they're like, you know what? There's some people
that got
this street a couple of miles away that have. You know what I mean? And so I think 100%. I need to get, and it's for, I mean, it sucks, but it's like, all right, you know what? I think I need to go over there to get what they have, because I don't have anything right now. So that's why people are
You know
doing
what?
it.
Just to jump on what I saw at the bottom,
quick.
the AR-15. How
I
many
was just
people
about to
actually
say
think that stands for assault rifle? AR stands for Armalite. It's the same thing as a pea shooter. Well, no, it's not a pea shooter, but you're shooting, you're shooting a semi-automatic, small round. But AR, you could juice it up and have it looking like your modern warfare gun. Essentially, it's just a prettied up, wooden shotgun that you found at Walmart all your life growing up. But it looks cool. So the perception of what the assault weapon is and the desire to ban it, it's not even an assault weapon. You're just uneducated about what a firearm is, a semi-automatic rifle versus an automatic rifle. And that, I think, is a conundrum because, personally, I'm a Second Amendment guy. Certain things I'm very liberal and progressive on. Certain things I'm very conservative. I think like everyone on this, we're not a monolithic group as black men. We're not just one thing versus another. So, that Second Amendment is precious. But I'm going to let it go because I think it's about time for one of our segments. I'm going to give it to John.
All right. It's that time that everybody loves to ask about, because it's what we do. Here we go. That's right. It's that time for your roasted. First week was me. Second week was Max. And guess whose turn is tonight? It's Avalanche.
Yes, indeed. You're roasted. You're roasted. We gotta roast some people that had me definitely ready to, act a fool on social media. But let's talk about it, right? So not too long ago, last week, a child was shot. His name was Cannon Hinnant, and the story goes the young man was riding his bike with his siblings, 5 years old, riding his bike. His neighbor approached him, put a firearm to his head, and shot him point blank. This is a atrocious story. I don't think anyone in their right mind is going to justify or say that this is a good thing, right? But what is very important about the story is that the father of the young man that was shot and the man who shot the child actually were pretty cordial and knew each other. The father, the night before, had the gentleman over for dinner, or I should say animal, had the animal over for dinner before the next day he ended up shooting his son. But the people we're going to roast today are the people on social media that are comparing this and demanding justice for Cannon, and comparing it to the Black Lives Matter movement, comparing it to the hundreds of men and women and children who were shot unjustly by law enforcement. There is absolutely no comparison. There's a hashtag that says uh, uh, justice for Cannon. There's another one that says say his name. The perpetrator was hunted down, arrested, charged with first-degree murder, denied bail, and put in jail. By all accounts, justice is working in this case. It frustrates me when people try to compare this to the legit people who are still seeking justice for the people who were shot. They're using this young man, this child's horrific murder for political reasons, and it's sick. It's sick that they're using this kid's murder for political reasons to say that it was a racial motivated shooting. The mother came out and said it wasn't racially motivated. The father came out, said it wasn't racially motivated, as far as they know. And the police department has said nothing in regards to the motive. So all these people that are posting this, turning it into some kind of race war, it's very dangerous. Like, don't just sit there and just post something, say justice for Cannon, and say that look what Black Lives Matter. They're literally saying that Black Lives Matter. Like this guy was a Black Lives Matter advocate and went and took this kid's life. This is man. We can't. Before you guys go and post some political garbage, please make sure that what you're posting is relevant, because there are people out there that are insane, and they will decide that they're going to go out and shoot a young black boy or black girl because of what this imbecile went and did, right? So, I think these people need to be called out. They need to be called out because they're dangerous. And I get it. We're in a political climate. I get it. Black Lives Matter, the actual organization, may have very little to do with the movement. I get it. George Soros, all the conspiracy theories, I get it. I looked into it, and I actually agree that Black Lives Matter, the organization, is not all what it seems to be, but the movement and the organization is two different things. Let's separate them. And anyone who can't see that needs to be separated, you need to be roasted. You need to be put out, because you're just trying to use it for more division and putting a wedge between the American people, and that needs to be, we need to put that out. So
let me roast to one time.
And I want to say, I would like to get your opinions on that. And also one other thing before I go, the father who had this man over, he was doing the day he invited him over for dinner, he was doing some barbecuing on the grill, and he saw this man sitting in his car, just sitting there for 15, 20 minutes, just sitting there. So he went over and was like, "Hey, you good?" And he was like, just, I got a lot on my mind, blah, blah, blah. He's like, "So why don't you come over, man? Just chill, have a couple brews with me, and I'm gonna have some chicken on the grill. You could come over and we could talk about it." So the guy said, okay. The guy went over. The family had dinner in the dining room, and the father and the man had dinner in the I guess the man cave or wherever they were chilling, having their brews. But the man said that the guy who, I forgot the guy's name, that he was paranoid, that he said that people were out to get him. So this is a classic case of mental illness. If it was a race, exactly, and I don't even know, but just from what they're saying, it seems like this guy was having issues in his mind. He thought people were coming to get him. And one last point: if this was a race thing, he would have shot the other kids. He would have continued shooting, and he would have made it a race thing. This was one of these psychological breakdowns. This was a schizophrenic type of a movement. And please, if you're listening to this, anyone who does post that, don't go back and forth, but make sure you call them out, because we don't need somebody who's on the fringe of insanity on the other side to go out and start shooting, and then now it's a back and forth stupid game. All right. So anyone want to jump in? Go on in, Chris.
Yeah. Also, I want to add to that. Some people are saying it's because the media didn't provide coverage, which is false. The media did cover the story, but we have to look at it like Kyle and I. When we talk to people with our background, we look at the facts surrounding the case. The facts surrounding case A versus facts surrounding case B, which is Breonna Taylor, are completely different. The media did cover it.
Was this in Florida? I'm sorry. Was this in Florida?
No, this was I think in North Carolina, right?
Charlotte, yes.
Charlotte, yeah. So it was in Charlotte. So he was, unfortunately, the young man was killed. The child was killed, but the suspect was immediately taken into custody. Compared to, let's say, Breonna Taylor's situation or George Floyd, because they were saying, well, they're not getting as much publicity. Right. George Floyd was killed at the hands of people that were supposed to protect the community. In addition to that, you have an officer that has a very rough history with the community. So the facts surrounding that and this are two different things. You can't compare them.
Can't compare.
100%.
James is blushing. I saw that, James.
Yeah.
My wife shouting you out, man.
James got the shout out. Okay.
Hey, James, boy, you winning, bro. You winning.
I want to jump on what Chris said too. The way that those who are using this heinous act, the murder of an innocent child by a psycho, and trying to, hey, where are the Black Lives people now? Well, defund the police now. You know, to compare the act of a psycho murdering a child to state-sponsored acts of terror against a particular racial, subset, a particular ethnic group, to say that, hey, well, why are you complaining about this and not that? They're two different things. And once again, the child, God bless him, rest his soul, he received justice.
Yeah, it's about justice, man.
Breonna Taylor did not receive justice.
What about
receive justice? Go on.
I forgot the little kid that was shot with the cap gun or the BB
Tamir
gun.
Rice.
Tamir Rice.
Ohio.
They won't hashtag none of that garbage, and then they're gonna hashtag
no one cared then.
Again. And look, and this is a quote. This is a quote from Bonnie Waddle, which is the mother, right? She said, "This quote. This has absolutely nothing to do with race, and do not compare this to Floyd." This is coming from the mother of the child that lost. Okay,
right.
And the grandmother said something similar. The father said something similar. And these right-wing complete nutcases want to go out and say justice for the family. Listen, the family is not calling for justice. You know what they're asking for? The death penalty, which I would be asking for too. So if anything, hashtag death for so and so. Hashtag don't come and compare this to something that it's and those
apples
people
to oranges.
Apples to it's not even close.
100%.
It's not even close. And again, the media covers stories over and over again when not a kid was probably shot today in the United States. Let's talk about it. It's not going to be all over the news headline news.
Right.
And they're saying the media don't cover it, yet everybody who's posting it is posting a media source. Get out of here. Like, what are you talking about? How would you know about the story if the media didn't cover it? So they're just, like I said, these people are dangerous. They need to be called out. Look, I'm not all Democrat, Republican. I don't choose no sides on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't do it. I look at the middle, and if I have to jump to the left for a second because I feel this way, I'll jump to the left. If I have to jump to the right, I'll jump to the right if it makes sense to me. But to stay on one far side on either end and just dig your heels in, you're a problem for the situation, man. And all they want to do is, this had nothing to do with Trump. This had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. This had nothing to do with any of the above. And since we're covering Second Amendment and firearms, the man who shot the kid was a felon. He wasn't supposed to have the firearm.
Got it illegally.
Illegally. Got it illegally, yeah.
And if he was a mentally ill, he didn't beat the system. So let's not even compare it to that either. Right. This was a situation where a man had mental issues, clearly, went and got an illegal firearm, and for whatever voice in his head, for whatever reason, he felt that kid at that time had to go because he did not kill his brother, the two sisters that were right there with him. He didn't go out in a blaze of glory, and that's when you would have known it was a political issue. If he would have did that, had the manifesto, did the whole nine, right? So, again,
he's just a nutcase.
It's one of the things like Avalanche just said. A lot of times, too, when these crimes are committed, these guns that these criminals use are guns that were stolen from legal gun owners. So it's criminal. So it's like this. So I got a buddy of mine. He's an active Leo. While he was on duty, 3 young minors broke into his home, started stealing all of his guns, but luckily his neighbor called it in and law enforcement intercepted these subjects before they were able to leave. But a lot of times this is what happens. They do burglaries, they do car break-ins, you know what I mean? And they steal legally owned guns and then it's on the streets. So I use it, I commit a crime or two, now I got a body or two on it, and then I just recycle it. I sell it to somebody else, or and it just goes around until law enforcement makes contact with that particular suspect or subject, and then it gets taken off the street.
Go ahead, James.
Part of that problem is what goes along with firearm safety and firearm storage. Real talk. We talk about humans taking responsibility, right? Gun owners. By the time I'm done with a concealed carry class, most people don't even want to carry. I'm not gonna say they don't want to even want the permit, but they understand it comes with great responsibility. Being a gun owner,
and
you're gonna be a gun owner. You need to have proper placement, proper storage. This little plastic travel case, that's all it is, a transport case. That's not that's nothing for you to store your weapon in. No so to the Leo friend, you need a safe, bro. I mean, we can't have a major arsenal, or even a mini arsenal, and not have a proper place to store it. You just can't do that.
Especially us guys in here that are firearms instructors. I know that we advertise and we market, especially me and Chris. I know me and Chris is getting it.
Yeah, we going in, bro.
We going in. But I'm just saying, like us, we got to know that we're definitely going to be targets, and we definitely have to have the proper stuff to make sure that nobody's going to get a hold of our things, and that our families may, my wife is also active Leo and also a firearms instructor as well. So, you know what I mean? Like, and, our house is pretty well protected, but at the same time, I tell her, you can't be oblivious to what's going on around you, because we do put ourselves in those positions, and we do put ourselves out there, and the people know what we do. And that could make us a target. Just like the Leo friend, they see a cop, they're going to automatically assume, oh, there's a cop car there every night. He got guns.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And if they're hungry, survival of the fittest. Look, I need a gun to protect myself, my crew.
But what's crazy is that they would actually see a cop car there and still want to try to break into the house.
So how am I not supposed to have a weapon?
That's how it is. It shows you how hungry and how desperate.
Out here?
They don't care.
Savages.
They don't care.
It's wars going on in Ivy Lane, Pine Hill. It's wars going on.
Crime Hills, man.
Wars going on out here, bro.
It's unfortunate, but that's just the reality. That's why I tell people,
that's where we
like
live.
Myself, Kyle, and James, when we're out teaching people, tell them the importance of, try to de-escalate. But, if part of my French, if shit hits the fan, hey, you got to handle business. That's it. That's it. When your life is on the line, that's it. Like, there's no more talking after that. Because if that person crosses that line and puts your life in jeopardy, it's hammer time.
Let me ask you a question, right? So my wife had, when we were in Florida, we both had our concealed. My wife knows how to shoot. Made sure we went to the range regularly. You know what I mean? Yep. So we were always there shooting. So for somebody that is in a household with a significant other or their partner, and I don't mean to be taking your questions, John, Max, and Avalanche. You guys feel that everybody in that household, everybody meaning the partner, the wife, girlfriend, whatever, should know how to shoot? Because I think so. I say yes.
On the relationship with your wife, if you are, you don't want to get the woman mad. I know my my father-in-law, rest his soul. Before he passed, great guy, Bob Davis said, and he was a gun owner, gun advocate. I have two of his rifles. One of his rifles that he passed down from his father. So it's in the family. And before he passed, and he said, Max, you got to take your daughter to the range and teach her how to shoot, and you got to make sure she knows how to carry herself around a gun. I said, yes, sir. And rest his soul. Now it's been several years. I have not yet taught her how to shoot. Again, but I agree with you, Gary. Not done being funny about it. It is important. I think that I know from my daughter. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. In 13 days, I'm about to have another baby girl. Bless.
That's
right. 2 for 2.
Yeah, man, 2 girls, man. I'm ready. That's why I got my guns.
Chitty chitty bang bang.
Man. All things being equal, by the time these girls, reach probably about 10 years old, that's the age I've chosen. They are going to learn about firearm safety. Yep. My firearms are in a safe in the house. They're protected. They're not going to be so amazed and wow, it's a gun. I mean, they're going to have respect for it. It is an awesome piece of technology. A mistake with a gun you can't take back. But at the same time, they will learn how to properly use a firearm, when to use it, and more importantly, when not to use it. So I think it is very important, Gary, to your point, that you should have a family that's aware, because once again, 100%. You live in the world of the wolf. Not the
I have a question on the chat. So I'm gonna. This is from coming from Greg Brown. Can you guys talk about the importance of real life scenario training, not just knowing how to shoot or handle a gun?
True story. Good question.
Hey,
Great question,
so
Greg.
Let's start off with James. For James, go ahead, James. You take it.
All right. So really quick, what happens in a gun range will never happen in the street. A gun range is a controlled environment. All of our gross motor skills will come into play in a real life scenario. Nothing is going to seem as I mean, if you get a malfunction, you can take your time, clear it out. But on the street, you need to know everything is different. Everything is absolutely different. Your cover is different. There's no cover inside of a gun range except you're on a tactical range. Whatever you can find as cover, it will be your cover. I don't care if it's a curb on the ground. That's your cover. Most people, believe it or not, can't shoot downward, so it's probably best if you duck down anyway. But at the end of the day, you need to find a tac range. You need to find an advanced shooter range, and just stop standing still at a gun range where you can't even draw your weapon. You can't draw your weapon except you're with an instructor for the most part. So you have to educate yourself. You got to get around the instructor. Be taught outside of the gun range. Go to a tac range. Go get some real training, because 100%. That's when it's going to get real. That's when it's going to get real.
100%. That's why me and Chris offer what we offer. We do outdoor training and we do scenario-based training. We do real tactical classes, and that's why we do what we do. I do my CCW classes indoors just to try to get, make it convenient for the people to get their CCW. But other than that, all my training's outdoors. All Chris's training's outdoors. Chris does everything outdoors, and I love that.
Yeah. Cover your six. Where you located at?
Orlando, Florida, baby.
Check them out on Facebook. And I cannot forget FTAC. Where you located at, brother?
I'm in Deltona, but I'm right about 20 minutes away from Orlando, so I'm out there.
That's it.
And Taut and Loaded, where you at, my brother?
Miami, baby, all the way at the bottom.
I'm coming to see you, James. I'm coming to see you, James, for sure.
James, you related to Doc?
Doc is my brother, believe it or not.
I was like, man, you got to be Doc's brother, because I talk to Doc a lot, man.
Yeah. I've been in the game a little bit longer than him. I actually got him certified into this whole field. He's doing well for himself, though. He's doing very well.
Like, at the end of the day, black instructors, there's not many of us, so we got to try to stick together, pool resources, try to help each other out. I send Doc people. So I got you now, James. I got my own family members down there that, I can start referring them to you guys, take some courses, because at the end of the day, it's important to be armed, trained, and educated. We take this seriously. All of us as instructors, we have a responsibility, to make sure that the people that are coming into this 2A community, that they're educated, armed, and trained, they know what to do. They know how to protect themselves. More importantly, while they're doing it or after they do it, we want to make sure that they don't go to jail. You know what I mean?
100%.
So yeah, do you have any contacts in Virginia and Maryland?
Oh yes, I do. I do have people up there.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a spin off what you just said, and I forgot who brought it up earlier, right? Knowing what to do after you've used your weapon. Please, guys, if anyone listening ever has to use their weapon, I suggest you research exactly what to do. I also suggest you keep your mouth completely shut. And what I did, which is very important, I pay for a yearly service that if I ever have to defend myself with my weapon, with my hands, with a knife, with a brick, with anything, I immediately have an attorney that I can call, and they will handle the case from there on. And they have absolutely no cap on and civilly, by the way, civil. Right. And that's another thing, guys. Remember, you might get away legally, but they'll come after your house and your pockets and your business. So please, look into. There's plenty of them online, as you can look them up. Attorneys and different groups and organizations that will refer. I'm sure the NRA and all the other ones have. You can look it up. But if you're going to carry a firearm and you're going to protect yourself with it, you better get legal representation at easy. As soon as it happens, I can make the call. So you call 911, you secure the weapon, you call your lawyer, and then you say nothing.
Correct. Your Fifth Amendment right is pretty much
100%.
I have one more. I have a question from Louis Lubin. So what can be done to get the legal guns off the street without it turning into a profiling situation?
So
stop it from coming in.
In reference to getting illegal guns off the street, unfortunately, that's mainly the job of law enforcement. Once they make contact with the subject, depending on whatever it may be, the situation, if it leads to them identifying a stolen gun, that's how they get the guns off the street. Other things that they do is these gun buyback programs. Gun buyback programs, but that's really it when it comes down to that. On the other side, for legal responsible gun owners, what we can do is making sure that our firearms are properly secured, making sure that we're keeping our vehicles locked. A lot of times, too, these grand thefts that occur, specifically of firearms, is because of two reasons. One, they left the firearm in the vehicle and the doors are unlocked. Two, it was improperly stored. So we need to make sure we're doing that. Properly storing our firearms, keeping the vehicles locked. So from the responsible citizen side, that's what we can do.
And at the same time, Chris, I think you're right on that part, but nobody should leave their gun in the car unless you in, school, federal building, something of that nature.
Right.
You should never leave if you're home, that gun should not be sitting outside in the car. It needs to be inside with you.
And don't keep it under your bed. Don't listen, guys. The first thing a criminal does when they break into your house is check under your mattress, bro. Don't
and the
put
nightstand.
Your gun.
Not when you're home. Not when you're not home.
When you're not home. When you're not home.
Right.
But I'll address that law enforcement question too. The law enforcement, I think the biggest thing is to try to stop the guns that we already have on the street. Those are going to be out there. The gun buyback programs is probably not going to work for a criminal. He ain't trying to get no money.
No.
What our biggest thing is now, like going forward, let's try to keep the guns that are legal, like you said, keep the legal guns from becoming illegal.
Sure.
I think that should be our biggest focus, because the ones that are out there on the street, I'll be real with you, working these streets, bro, you ain't getting those back.
Yeah.
Now,
we got a quick question from the chat. What would you what would you guys recommend as your first gun?
No, I'm not a reliable.
It all varies. To recommend a gun, first gun, like myself and I'm sure Kyle and James, we do this. Like, all right. So you want me to recommend a gun to you? Now, what are you going to be using the gun for? Concealed carry. The size of your hands are going to be a factor. Your body shape. Your pockets, right? What you can afford, what you can't afford. So there's all these different factors. I tell people, do their research. Number one, take a class. During that class is when instructors like myself, Kyle and James, will give you the different options. And then by the end of the class, you'll have an idea of, your instructor will tell you, hey, try out these 2 or 3 guns based on what we see here, and then go to the gun store, go check them out, try it, and then that'll be your best way on determining what would be best for you. Like me, I'm biased. I tell my students this all the time. I'm a Glock guy. I love Glocks.
Me too.
Those are the most reliable pistols across the board. With all the training that I do, I can get real dirty. Yes.
I'm a Glock guy.
Come on, devil dog. Come on.
I'm a Glock guy. I'm right there with you, Chris.
A SIG is a good gun too.
SIGs are great.
SIG's a great gun, but I'm a Glock guy.
Gonna SIG get real dirty.
That's another discussion.
Springfield.
Right.
You gotta come back with that.
I got this Springfield.
This is turning into a pissing contest. Hey guys, what's going on?
Austria.
I would like to say this too about the first gun thing, right? For the first time gun owner, the experience is a lot of hype. It's a lot of Hollywood. It's a lot of people go in and they're looking for the coolest gun, right? But the coolest gun is not the gun that's necessarily going to work for you. Because I'm gonna tell a quick story on my first time. When the first time I went to purchase the firearm, I already know I wanted the chrome and I wanted the this and I wanted to look like this.
1911. That's what you wanted.
I wanted it in a movie style. Like I wanted the best.
Face off. And the guy was like, face off.
Exactly. So I went in and I'm like, I want that. And he was like, the instructor looked at me and he was like, that's not going to work for you. And I'm like, I thought he was just being a jerk. Like, I'm like, what you mean that's not going to work? I was like, what's that? I was like, what do you mean that's not going to work for me? And he's like, I could tell by the size of your hands that weapon is not going to work for you. So he's like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pick this one for you. And you go ahead and pick that one. Pick other. We'll go in the range and we'll shoot. And if you like how it feels in your hand when you shoot it, you let me know. And sure enough, I shot every gun that we picked out, and the one that he chose was the most comfortable. You gotta take you gotta shoot the weapon. Don't buy a weapon you haven't shot. Go to the range. And I mean, look, guys, if you're gonna get a firearm, find a firearm instructor, take the course, learn the safety, do all of the above before you go and spend $500, $600, $800, $900, $1,000 on a weapon. Okay, do that. Do that. They know what's gonna work for you in the scenario that you're looking for to carry. Okay, women versus men. You know what I'm saying? It's all there's so many different variants, right? So make sure that you don't just go buy a gun because you saw it in a movie. Point of the story.
All right, face off, gold chrome, gold plated, and silver plated.
So we got a couple requests. So feel free to chime in after everything is on there. Just put your hands up there. So here's a quick question we're gonna have. So this is we got 2 minutes to go, but so I always ask this tonight, every show. What things can we leave our viewers with tonight? So I'm gonna start it off with you, Chris.
What things can we leave them with? Number one, firearm safety. Go out, get trained. It's important. Don't just get a gun and think you know it all, or don't think that you don't need the training. With my company, FTAC, my acronym is EAT. I'm all about educating, arming, and training. So go ahead, seek an instructor, get educated, get armed, get trained. More importantly, if you're gonna have a firearm in the home, I believe that you should train the kids as well and the whole family. My daughter is 11 years old and she shoots. You know what I mean? So it's all about that. Knowledge. Learn your laws. Learn what you can and can't do. That's pretty much it for me. It's all about going out and being educated. Also, last thing, don't just stop at the concealed class, because a lot of people will take a concealed class and think that when something happens, they're going to respond like Rambo or SEAL Team 6.
Right.
If you haven't trained like SEAL Team 6, you're not going to respond that way. There's a difference of reality versus expectation. And that's what I teach in my classes as well. So I'm big on that. You have to continuously train. So that's pretty much it. What I would leave them with.
Go ahead, James.
I promise you, he snatched the words right out of my life, right out of my mouth. At the end of the day, you got to train. You training is can never be substituted with anything. You have to train, and I don't mean just getting in and popping holes through paper. You have to train. Training there's no substitute for it. Educate yourself. Again, the gun laws. You can't omit that out of your repertoire. Understanding where you can, how you can, where you can't. Even simple places to go inside of a building with certain guns. Gun storage. I'm big on firearm safety, but just as big on gun storage. Situation awareness and transitional spaces. Those two go together like peanut butter and jelly. I'm always talking about those factors. You got to know your radar has got to be up. You can't just be oblivious to society. You can't walk around with your AirPods in both ears or having conversations and not thinking or looking around as you're walking through a simple parking lot through Walmart or Publix and not thinking somebody's sitting in their car, not watching. So you got to be aware of your surroundings and that transitional space from A to B. Something can happen from your front door to your car. Something can happen. So don't think it's just a regular old day where you just walk from your house to your door and incident free. It can happen. Be aware. Don't be panicked and don't be frantic about, I got to look around all the time. But just be aware. Just be aware.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
No, for me, it's looking at it differently, right? I'm looking at it. Sorry, I'm trying to find Cover Your Six on Instagram. But for me, it's understanding where you are, where you live. The rules aren't the same where you are, you know what I mean? So the things that you can do down in the South versus what you can do up north are truly important. And really understanding your gun and what you have and how to use it is truly important. So I think that's key. And being able to really understand that the responsibility and the level that you have to, that responsibility is really key. Understand, what I'm saying? There's consequences to this. So make sure before you do it that you really understand what's really going to happen. And I know it's going to be at the snap of the finger, but everybody knows right from wrong.
All right, Mr. Kyle, close us out, brother.
All right. Well, I think all the three people that went before me kind of took everything that I wanted to touch on: training, situational awareness, and definitely consequences to your actions. I did want to touch on one question that somebody had earlier, and they asked when they get pulled over and an officer gets their license, if they can see that they have a concealed weapons permit, and if they have a concealed weapons permit, does that change their attitude or shift their attitude during the traffic stop? I will tell you this: 99.9% of the time, an officer pulls you over and interacts with you, even after they run your license, they're not going to know, at least in Florida, I can speak for Florida, they're not going to know whether you have a concealed weapons permit or not. It takes a lot to figure that out, and most officers don't have time to do that during the traffic stop. I wanted to touch on that a little bit. And then training. Going back to training was obviously the biggest thing. Don't think that after you take your concealed weapons class, you're going to be John Wick, because you're not. You got to definitely get out there and train. My motto for my class is, I'm gonna teach you how to run your gun. I did an event in Seattle where I had 116 people week before last come out and all take my basic class, and I was going 12 hours a day for seven days straight. So but yeah, definitely get the training, reach out and talk to somebody. One last thing I wanted to close this out with is, when we were talking about the children and stuff, here goes my little guy right here. Hey, what's the difference between a semi-automatic and a revolver? Speak up.
One's a pistol that has a barrel on it.
And then what does the other one have?
A magazine.
Oh, okay. All right. So I started him at
He's
5 years old already.
Right.
5 years old. That's my 5-year-old. That's my baby.
That's
my
important.
My 13, my 11, my 9-year-old, they're already trained. They can already, they're shooting 3-inch groups at 7 yards. He's next. His hands are a little too small, but we're shooting airsoft and BB guns in the backyard. So you can't start them too young and get that safety started as early as possible.
Right.
So yeah, I was waiting for him to come out the shower.
Awesome.
But,
Hey, one day, hey, John,
brother?
Max, hey, Avalanche, you brothers keep doing this thing, man. This is awesome. Truly appreciate you having me, for real, man. You guys are doing great things, man. And we're tuning in every week just to make sure. But I don't think there's going to be anything as dope as this one. But you know what I'm saying? Y'all
we killed it.
Well, I thank you guys. We thank you guys. You know, we reached out.
Cheers.
You guys showed
up.
Salute.
So one thing I'm gonna say, because it's funny you said that, Gary, because this is for the fellas. Next week is for the ladies. Is we're gonna be talking about women empowerment, called Women Amplified. Episode 13 is going to be. We have some amazing guests coming, and it's a great topic. Got a couple surprises. It's gonna be fun. But you know, I hope you guys had a good time with the Coffee for Your Soul Swai. You guys are part of the family now, and we expect you to come back on another topic. And we can talk about it again. You guys got enough classes. We can have a class virtual right here. So, you know, but I just want to say,
that would be dope. That would be dope. It really would.
So if you guys could say Coffee for Your Soul on 3. 1, 2, 3. Coffee for Your Soul. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night, brothers.
Thank you for the